Hey everyone and welcome to Storytime. My name is Jake and today we are going to be looking at the subreddit r/idontworkherelady, where people tell us their craziest stories on when they got mistaken for being an employee at somewhere they didn't work. If you're new around here, please do hit subscribe down below so that you never miss out on another video. But for now, let's sit back, relax and enjoy some Reddit stories. People who love reading actually do exist. My story happened nearly a decade ago. And isn't extraordinary, but it was very satisfying. Exact wording is a little iffy thanks to my poor memory, but it's a close approximation. Around this time in my life, I worked in retail. I was regularly mistaken for an employee of various stores, even if I wasn't in clothing that even remotely resembles a store's uniform. I must have had a customer service aura or something. I don't know, my friend too. It's also not uncommon for customers to knowingly ask other customers for assistance in the area I live in. It's an "I know you don't work here, but I was hoping you could help" kind of thing. So a friend and I were at a mall, browsing a small bookstore. We both loved reading all kinds of stuff. Fantasy and science fiction, actual science, history, comics, travel, hobbies, even the occasional trashy romance novel. You name it. And one of us has probably read a book that falls under the category. I mean, we both just loved reading pretty much anything. We were also both very familiar with our local bookstores in general. Browsing at bookstores was one of our favourite pastimes. We'd been in this store for about 30 minutes or so, moving from section to section and talking in low voices about various books and authors and series with enthusiasm and excitement. We were also discussing which ones we wanted to buy and had baskets with us. We were pulling books off the shelves, reading the back, flipping through the first few pages, and reshelving the books we didn't decide to buy. It's important to note that both of us were dressed extremely casual. She had on a very low-cut shirt, and I was in jeans and a tank top. Definitely not the professional attire that the bookstore employees wore. We just reached the comics section when this lady came up to us and interrupted our conversation with a question about a specific book. The only employee apparent in the store was in the process of ringing up several customers. I asked her what the book was about, and after she told me, I told her what section it would probably be in, and pointed the section out. Then I turned back to my friend and resumed our conversation. Well, this lady didn't like my response, and was not going to have it. She interrupted us again and asked why I wasn't looking the book up on a computer and escorting her to its exact spot on the shelf. I said, "Sorry ma'am, I don't actually work here. I'm just another customer who happens to love books. I'll still take you to it, but I've never heard of the book you're asking about. What I told you before is the best help I can offer." I then turned back to my friend and resumed the conversation. Suddenly, this lady grabbed my wrist. I turned towards her in total shock and outrage, and my friend is giving her a murderous "what do you think you are doing, you crazy lady" kind of look. My friend had gone from kneeling near the bottom shelves to standing in an instant. I calmly look down at her hand and then look in her eye as I gently but firmly remove her hand from my wrist. Then I step back out of arm's reach. "I know you work here." "How dare you touch me like that? I'd think that the way we're dressed would make it obvious that we don't work here." "I've been in here for 15 minutes, and you two have been moving from section to section while talking about books. You work here." "No, I don't." "Yes, you do. I saw you putting books back." My friend, who is much less polite than I am, "You saw us doing all of that because we love to read, and we were looking at books, you idiot." It's possible that her response had several more F-bombs. At that time, that word was my friend's favourite word, and she sometimes used it every other word. I enjoyed the word myself, but customer service was so ingrained in me that I most likely stuck to purely polite language. Her, offended and outraged, "I'm going to report you to your manager." Me, smiling and laughing a little, "Okay, you do that." The lady, while looking me in the eye, "I mean it." My friend, also laughing, "Go ahead." I turned and exchanged a glance with my friend before we both turned back to watch her. The actual bookstore employee was less than 10 feet away and well within hearing range. My friend and I were eagerly awaiting her complaint, and when she got to the actual employee, we were thrilled to hear her recounting the tale of how rude we were to her and how we should be fired. The employee looked confused, and then looked where the lady was pointing. The lady looked over at us too. I smiled and waved. My friend laughed. "No ma'am, they don't work here." "But they've been moving from section to section and talking about books." "I'm sorry for the confusion ma'am, but they don't work here. All employees of this bookstore wear a badge like this." They show the badge. But they were talking about books and they were excited." "They don't work here, ma'am." The lady turned toward us, looking extremely confused, embarrassed, and deflated. "But..." I was laughing pretty hard and making no attempt to hide it, but I did wave at her again. "What was the name of the book you were looking for, ma'am, and I'll help you find it." The lady bought a single book. Between my friend and I, we bought around 20 or so books. I had worked a book allowance into my monthly budget. The lady was gone when we checked out, and the employee apologized us for the inconvenience. I told her that it really wasn't his fault, that some people are idiots. And we all kind of chuckled about how ridiculous she'd been. To this day, I can't get over how impossible she found it that someone who didn't work in a bookstore might know about books and be excited about them. I mean, I might love reading and read from a broad range of categories, but I've never considered myself as falling into hardcore territory. Sadly, I do live in the southern United States, so "them readers" is also a phrase that I'm familiar with. She just didn't look like the kind of person that I'd hear it from. Guess you really can't judge a book by its cover. Did that woman seriously think that people in the bookstore have to either work there or hate books? Like, why else would you go into a bookstore? You want to get a book because you like reading. I don't get the logic there. "I don't work for your competitor, I'm just planning my wedding." Many years ago, back when cell phone cameras were still a new concept, I was getting married. Without a lot of money for a wedding, I was planning the ceremony myself, and drove to all the craft stores in my area to find affordable inspiration. I had a system for keeping the ideas organized, so I could come back to the right stores and find the items later. This involved taking a picture of the item right above the price tag, and then jotting down in a notebook what I could use it for. I would also write the code for the photo above the note, so I wouldn't get mixed up. After discovering how pricey craft stores are, I decided to try my luck at Walmart. They have craft supplies, right? So there I was, minding my own business, snapping a picture and writing in my notebook, when an employee walked up to me and said, "Ma'am, are you doing price comparisons right now?" I nodded and said yes, and started to explain my system, thinking this was just a friendly person I was going to have a chat with. The employee held up her hand. "I don't need to know all that. You can't take pictures of the prices. You can write them down, but if you keep taking pictures, I will kick you out of the store." My mouth dropped open. That escalated quickly. There had to be a mistake. I asked, "But how will I remember what the item looked like?" She shook her head. "Not my problem if you have a bad memory. Put the camera away." and she turned on her heel to march off. So I had a dilemma. I couldn't plan a wedding with no pictures, but I couldn't take pictures of the prices. Okay, I would just take a picture of the item without the price and include the price in my notes. I wrote everything down first, just in case she threw me out before I got all the info, and then snapped the picture. Sure enough, she rounded the corner of the shelf where she had been hiding and said, "I said no pictures." I stood still and replied, "I didn't take a picture of the price, ma'am. You can see it if you want." "I don't care, you're leaving now." Just then, another employee walked up. I don't know who she was, but the other employee immediately went meek. "What's the trouble here?" "She's using a camera phone to do price comparisons." I spoke up and said, "I stopped taking pictures of the price like she asked, but I'm planning my own wedding to save money, and I need pictures to know which things go well together." "So you don't work for another store? These are for your own personal use?" I nodded and said yes. I can't afford a big wedding, so I'm doing everything myself. I just need ideas and places to get things for cheap. I briefly showed her my notebook and a couple of the pictures I had taken. The nice employee nodded like she was impressed and said, "That's a great idea. I should have done that too. Weddings are too expensive." She then turned to the other lady and said, "She's fine. Come on, I could use you over here." I said thank you, and the nice employee said, "Not at all. Congratulations," and led the other woman away, sulking and silent. I was able to put together the entire wedding for under $1,000. I didn't even know that was a thing. I didn't think people actually sent out people to like go and check the prices and take pictures and stuff. I mean, I guess you can do it all online nowadays, but yeah. I don't work for the cruise ship. I drive water taxis. Home base is downtown, and the furthest dock we pick up and drop off at is occasionally occupied by small cruise ships. It takes about 10 minutes to get between the two locations if there are no other stops, but we don't exclusively service the cruise ships. We also pick up and drop off virtually anywhere in between. We run on a schedule, departing downtown on the hour, departing the dock near the cruise ship at past. For some crazy reason, the cruise ship passengers frequently think their all-inclusive cruise includes water taxi rides downtown. I frequently had to explain that I don't work for the cruise ship and we charge $3 plus tip per person each way, which means I have to argue with the same old dilapidated Karens both ways, as they are always trying to argue that they already paid on the way downtown, and shouldn't have even had to pay then. The only time I can remember ever receiving a tip from a crusty cruise ship Karen was when one crumpled $5 and threw it at me, exclaiming, "You obviously need this more than I do." I replied, "I probably do need it more than you. Thank you. Now I'm halfway to my goal of paying for my next meal at Wendy's." My regular customers got a kick out of that and tipped handsomely. One day, I was transporting the captain of one of the cruise ships. We got to talking about how awful his passengers were to me. The end result of the conversation was that the cruise ship would launch their own tender and shuttle their own passengers for free. All of my co-workers rejoiced when they saw the cruise ship's own tender putting across the harbour. That could hit your profits a bit, but he did say it was only a small cut of his revenue. I reckon they could do a deal with the cruise ship saying oh, the cruise ship pay you this amount and then you do the free trips with the people that are on the cruise ships. Something like that. Why did it have to be Hot Topic? So I was at the mall with a friend of mine. We went mostly for makeup, but decided to browse a few other stores. I want to mention she's a short native Filipino girl wearing a flying squirrel onesie, and I'm a taller, kinda pale Greek girl with blue hair, wearing shorts, a black tank top, and a flannel. Face is also decently pierced. We decide to go into Hot Topic to look at New Mercy, hoping to score socks or something, when I hear this guy say, "I'm ready to check out." I don't pay attention to it and keep looking along. Then he says again, but louder, "I'm ready to check out," in our direction. So we look up and look right over at this guy, like 40 something, short, and holding up his stuff in both hands, just staring right at me. I'm super confused and just quickly reply, "I don't work here, dude, I just want a shirt." He seemed confused and irritated, but then silently waited in line. My friend absolutely laughed her butt off, and I'm never ever going to hear the end of it. Well, she did say blue hair, black tank top with a flannel shirt, and lots of facial piercings, so I can understand his assumption with a Hot Topic employee. Hey everyone, I hope you all had a really good day and that you enjoyed that video. If you want to check out some other videos, then click on screen right now, or check out the playlist down below. If you enjoyed that video, then please do leave a like. And if you want to submit your own stories, then you can do so by joining the Discord in the top link in the description. But thank you so much for watching, and I will see you very soon.